button. We're going to get moving here pretty quick, so I'll kind of talk you through this first track session as we head out. Let's just go ahead and go foot on the brake. Up on the drive tab, let's hit the M for manual, and go ahead and follow me out to the track. Alright gentlemen, so again, this first track session is going to be a little bit slower track session. We got to get out here, learn the track, get comfortable with the cars, go over some shift points, corner numbers, and also some rotations. Alright, main thing I want you to focus on is placing your tires where I place mine. So just like your car laying down tracks in the snow, you're going to place your tires in those tracks I'm laying down. Alright, that is going to be the fastest line around the track, using up all the room. It's also the cleanest part of the track, where we're laying down rubber or blue groove and getting all the grip. So again, just focus on placing your tires where I place mine all throughout the session. We get that driving line down, and the speed's going to come a little bit easier for us. Now again, this morning we'll go about 4 to 5 car lengths in between us, keep you pretty close so we can stay relevant on the corners we're talking about. We're going to enter right onto the track, and you'll notice we're going to hold the left lane of the blend lane as we enter on. Let's upshift into 4th gear, and you'll see a tall red brake cone as we come into turn number 3. We're going to be applying some brake pressure there, downshifting 3rd gear, and easing off the brakes as we scan to the right. Find that orange apex. You'll notice my tires are on the curb at the orange apex, kind of running over that red and white curbing. We'll get back to the right, upshift 4th gear. We'll come in straight and brake at the apex. We're going to miss the curb with the white near apex cone there. And then back on with the orange. I'm going to hold the right just a touch. Now it's going to straighten these two out. Apex to apex, curb to curb. Now use up as much as we can to keep it straight as we come through the S's. And then we'll brake straight, downshift 3rd gear, and we're going to go middle lane here in the bowl. Alright, not too high, not too low, looking left. Use your driver's side window to find that apex. And we'll steer down to get on the curb, and then upshift 4th gear as we come on up and over the launch pad. You're just going to want to make sure you have your wheels pointed nice and straight as you come up and over. Alright, we'll stay on it as we get to the left, looking for the first curve. That's where we're going to brake. Off the brakes as we get over to the right. Again, a double apex here in turn 5A, so we want to be on the curb for both. Then we'll use the throttle to get us out towards the blue turning cone. Light touch of brake, 3rd gear, and then back on the curb at the apex. Alright, it helps to kind of look through the corner and find that apex. Instinctively to give you a better idea of when and how much to get down and on the curb. Alright, we'll hold left, that way we can get to the right, clip the apex in the kink, and then start of the next curve. We need some light pressure, get some weight on the nose, release slow as we get over to the left, clip the apex in turn 6, and then we're going to brake straight. Alright, downshift 3rd gear and steer down to the inside here. Alright, Israel, looking good. Let's go ahead and do our first rotation. Alright, I'm going to get you over to the right, bring your pace down. I'm going to get Ryan directly behind me. And then Israel, you'll bring up the rear behind Ryan's blue car there. Alright Ryan, 3rd gear, you'll notice on the left side there we got a brake cone. This is turn 1A. Alright, we're going to be rotating every lap, so it does help to just kind of apply some brake pressure, make sure we're on the right line. You'll notice I'm in the middle lane, back on the curb in 1B. And then we'll unwind and accelerate as we head up the hill. Alright, tight to the apex on the left. That way we have some room to unwind out towards the exit curbing. Alright, we're going to be 4th gear upshifting and straight towards the red brake cone. Alright, we're going to apply some brakes at the brake cone. Downshift 3rd gear and again ease off the brakes. If you notice my brake lights, a little bit of pressure, releasing slow as I get down to the inside. Make sure I'm on the curb at the apex. Then we can roll back to the throttle. Alright, gently squeezing, adding more. 4th gear upshift on the curb to the right. tight to the apex. We're going to brake. Again, missing the curb with the white near apex. If you look down at the asphalt, there's a patch that runs through that section. Alright, that's for your left side tires, as well as here through the S's, you can start to see the line, especially this time of day. Alright, munch the curb as we can, brake straight, downshift third gear, and we're looking for the middle. Alright, if you look down at the asphalt again, you'll see kind of a crack or a seam running through the asphalt. Alright, the track's basically split up into 3 lanes, so left lane, middle lane, right lane. You're going to see those 2 cracks or seams running through the track. Alright, we're 4th gear as we get over to the left here for 5A. Again, brake at the first curb, release slow as we get over to the right. Got to be on the curb for the double apex. And again, we'll use the throttle, accelerate, light touch of brake, 3rd gear, and keep looking through the corner. On the exit of 5B, again, we want to be out to the left, using the exit curbing to hold left. That way when we go to the right through the kink, it's nice and easy. And start of the curb here, some light pressure. I'm going to release slow, get over tight to the apex on the left. And then once I'm pointed here, I can apply a little bit of throttle on a straight line and then brake, downshift 3rd gear. Again, use the patch to your advantage here, especially in turn 7. We're coming downhill, so you'll notice I get off the brakes a little slower there, keeping some weight on the nose. Everyone stay with me. We're all going to pull over to the right. Just gather up here, give ourselves a little bit of space between us and the other group, and then we'll go ahead and head back out. Alright, not looking too bad here, gentlemen, so just keep working on that driving line. Again, no matter the pace, we're driving the driving line, working on those inputs. As we start picking up the pace a little bit later this afternoon, it's going to be important to make sure we're hitting those marks, applying those inputs. So if we can start doing it now and building muscle memory, it's going to be a little easier for us. Alright, gentlemen, looks good. We got some room. Let's do our rotation here. So I'll get Israel over to the left. Ryan, stay over to the right. Yep, Israel behind me, and then Ryan's bringing up the rear. Let's go ahead and head back out. 3rd gear. And notice as I turn in, a little bit of brake pressure to the first apex here, 1A. Then I'm just going to coast. Middle lane, making sure I can rotate and get back on the curb of 1B, and then roll back to the throttle. Alright, tight to the left. We'll upshift 4th gear and straight towards that red brake cone, gentlemen. And at the brake cone, we're going to brake. Nice and straight. Downshift 3rd gear and ease off those brakes as we look right. Again, find that orange apex out your driver's side, passenger side window if we need to. Looking far ahead of us and scanning through corners is how we start to get familiar on where the track's going and where we need to be. Alright, upshifting 4th gear. Notice my brake lights just off the curb at the white near apex. And again, I'm mostly coasting or rotating, getting the car pointed to the right before I'm rolling back to the throttle and straight through. Again, as much of the curb as you can. If you notice, tight to the apex allows us to keep a straight line. Brake straight, 3rd gear. Get middle lane, look left. We'll find our apex, make sure we're on the curb, and then we can roll back to the throttle as we upshift 4th gear, straight over the launch pad. Now we're getting back over to the left, looking for that first red and white curb where we apply the brakes. And then release the brake slow, trail brake, or balance with the brake pressure. Keep it that way where we want it as we get to the right. Light touch of brake. Again, back on the curb. And we're going to unwind and accelerate towards the left here to set up for the kink. And upshift in 4th gear. Start of the curb, light pressure. We'll release slow as we get to the inside. Apply a little bit of throttle, straight line, and then brake, downshift 3rd gear. Again, look at those brake lights. Alright, a little slower release or bleed off the brakes to get us to the inside. Alright, Israel, looking good, man. Better each lap. Let's get you over to the right. Ryan, you're going to fall in line behind me and my white lead car. And then Israel, you'll bring up the rear there behind Ryan's blue car. Alright, 3rd gear here, Ryan. Again, notice my brake lights getting down to the apex in 1A. And coast, middle lane. Let it rotate here, all right? We're just going to make sure we can get back on the curb so we can get a straighter shot through turn 2. Tight to the apex on the left. And upshift 4th gear, straight towards the brake cone. Notice I'm not getting over to the left until it kind of jogs over at the top of the blend lane there. There we go. Downshift 3rd gear. Again, look right. Let's find that apex. Again, there's a big patch here to your advantage. It's for your left side tires. That dark patch, get your left side tires in there. Your right side's going to be on the curb where it should be. All right, we'll get back towards the right. Upshift 4th gear. Brake at the apex. We're going to release slow. Coast. Steer to the right, all over the curb, and then straight through. Notice when I get on the curves here, it's at the start, so I can keep it nice and tight to those orange cones and as straight as possible. Alright, brake straight, 3rd gear, middle lane. Again, keep looking left. Find that apex early out your driver's side window. We'll upshift 4th gear, straight up and over. On the curb for the double apex, we'll throttle, light touch of brake, 3rd gear. It'll help us rotate and get pointed out of the corner in 5 feet. But again, look through that corner consistently and find that apex. 4th gear, on the curb, clipping the apex in the key, gentlemen. Good. Notice those brake lights down to the inside. We're coming downhill there. Again, we don't have any weight up front, so as the ground's dropping out from underneath those tires, we want to use a little bit of brake pressure, push them into the ground, give you that grip. Let's get you to the right, Ryan, looking good. We're going to do our next rotation here, so Israel, then Ryan, and let's keep it moving, all right? 3rd gear, in you, Israel. A little bit of brake pressure here to build that muscle memory, and then we're going to coast. Again, be patient, let the car get rotated, make sure we're on the curb, and then we can start to accelerate as we unwind the steering. Use up the room here. Alright, 4th gear, straight towards that red brake cone. Release slow, use that patch to your advantage. You'll notice it starts kind of wide from the apex and then tightens up. Follow that follow that patch and it's going to get you right down and on the curb at the apex. And again, we're braking here, releasing slow, coasting to the right. Notice I'm using that curb and then straight through, apex to apex, straight as possible. Remember, use the room to the blue turning cone here. Cut it back on the curb and then unwind and accelerate out towards the left. Or just some light pressure. We've got to stay smooth on our steering. So we're getting back over to the left. Brake straight. Notice those brake lights as we get to the inside. So, yeah, too bad. Let's do our next rotation. Let's work on being a little bit closer and on the curb at these apexes here, gentlemen. Again, you'll notice anytime we have one of these orange apexes, my tires are rumbling across that red and white curbing. Looks up good. Let's get back in line. Again, we're going to need a little bit of brake pressure once we pick up the pace here to turn 1A. And just mostly coasting, opening up the diff, allowing the car to turn or rotate. And then we can roll back to the throttle. Alright, notice all over the curb to the left, fourth gear. We're not using the curb on the exit, but close to it, right by that white line and straight towards the red brake cone here, gentlemen. Remember, scan right early here. Alright, find that orange apex. That way it gives you an idea when and how much. So we're a little early down to the apex curbing, meaning we're getting on the curbing before the orange apex. Remember, we're only on the curb, or the red and white curb, at the orange cone. Kind of quickly on, quickly off. Notice only at the orange cone, there I'm off, back to the left. These ones are short, so we use it all up to keep that straight shot. Once we break straight into the bowl here, we're going to go third gear. Again, let the car come up to about middle lane. We'll use some of the bankings to our advantage. Find that apex out the driver's side window and roll back to the throttle. Upshift fourth gear, straight over, gentlemen. Alright. Nice job, Ryan. Let's do our next rotation. Keep that up, right? We're looking better and better. Each lap here, gentlemen. Keep it up. Upshift fourth gear, straight towards that red brake cone. Remember, look right early here. Find that orange cone. We're going to steer down only on the curb, right at that orange cone, and then using the throttle here. Kind of wide arc as we get back to the right. Fourth gear upshift. Tight to the apex. Again, use the curb. We'll brake where it's flat. Release the brakes slow. You'll notice we're kind of coming up and over a little hump and downhill. So kind of releasing the brakes slow or trailing, balancing with the brakes up and over that little hump. It's going to keep the car settled or stuck down to the ground, right? Where it's a lot more stable to get through that section. So just be patient. Look left here. Again, we want to prioritize getting on the curb there at the apex. That way we have a straight shot up and over the launch pad. Again, we'll be fourth gear. And we're going to stay on the throttle as we get to the left. This is just going to come with some comfortability, confidence. We'll brake at the first curb. And again, release slow as we get to the right. Alright, let it coast for a moment. And then roll on the throttle. Light touch of brake. Downshift third gear. Let the car turn, and then back to the throttle as we unwind and accelerate to the left. Just nicely rolling on. Remember, all these inputs are nice and smooth, so the pedals especially aren't light switches. They're more like dimmers. Roll on, roll off, squeeze on, squeeze off. Alright, look left. Looking good there, Israel. Driving life getting a lot better. We use up the curb at the apexes. Alright, let's get you over to the right. Do our next rotation here. Ryan, let's get you in line. Followed by Israel. Beautiful. Let's keep it moving here. Again, notice my brake lights. Yeah, it may not seem like we need brakes, but trust me, once you pick up the pace, we're going to be needing some brakes coming into turn 1A especially. So it's helpful to start building that muscle memory, just making your body do those things. That way it's just more instinctive. So again, muscle memory, your body will take over and you start working on some other stuff. Alright, fourth gear. Again, we're going to brake at the brake cone, straight line towards the blue turning cone, and then look right. Notice my brake lights. Even as I turn, we're third gear, we're releasing off the brakes, getting the last bit of rotation, getting on the curb, and then rolling back to the throttle. Alright, you can see we're getting some pretty good raindrops here, so just be nice and smooth on your inputs. Again, as it gets wet, it kind of requires us to be a little bit smoother. That's where you don't have as much grip. Alright, straight through here, apex to apex, curb to curb. Again, we'll brake straight. Notice I'm not on the curb, but close to it with that white cone. Middle lane, we're third gear, and then the only way to look here is out your driver's side window. Again, look far ahead of you, look to where you're going, through corners. It's impossible to outdrive your eyes, so start looking to where you want to go. Things will start being more familiar. We're looking for stationary objects or visual cues. Here's that first curb, that's where we brake. There's the blue turning cone, that's where we turn in. Double apex, so that's where we need to be on the curb. And then again, throttle out towards the blue turning cone. A little bit of brakes, we got to get way back to the front. Third gear helps us turn, and then out towards the left here. Alright, fourth gear. Just some light pressure here. You'll notice even as I turn, releasing slow. And again, that's just keeping weight on those front tires and give me that front end grip. Alright, again, brake straight, third gear. Balancing, releasing, trailing off the brakes to make sure I'm on the curb, and then we get to get back on the throttle. Looking good, right? Let's get it back to original order here. Alright, you guys are looking much better. Keep it up. Again, just more repetitions. Each time we're out here hitting these marks, driving this line, easier it becomes. Alright? A little bit of brake pressure. Again, build that muscle memory. Coast in the middle, look right. Unwind and accelerate, use some room on the exit, fourth gear. And we'll apply some brakes at the brake cone. Third gear downshift, even as we turn, I'm releasing the brakes as I input the steering. And then I'm coasting. And we're going to talk about kind of opening up the rear diff and allowing the car to turn a little bit easier. Get back towards the right. Fourth gear. Just brake at the apex. Release slow. Again, we're going to coast. Get back towards the right. That'll straighten these two out. Again, straight as possible so we can stay on throttle much of the curve as we need. Third gear, about middle lane. Again, not too high, not too low. It's actually kind of nice. Again, I'm noticing them, notice me using those brake lights as we get to the right there. And also, we're going to be coming uphill, so that's going to be scrubbing some speed or pace as well. So again, we want to be easing off or reducing our brake pressure as we're starting to roll through the corner. Alright, again, holding left, so it's easy to get through the kink here. Less steering, more pace, more stable car. Alright, that's what we're looking for as we're getting through the corners here. Using up all the room, you'll notice we're setting up all the way to the left here because we're going to the right. Give us as much room as we need to get through the corner as fast as possible. Again, less steering, more stable car. Alright, we're going to be exiting the track here, so everybody stay here in order. Let's go left turn signal and follow me off the track here. Alright, gentlemen, nice job on our first session out there. Alright, again, we gotta kind of learn to walk before we run, right? But learning the track is going to be a little bit of the battle today, figuring out where we're going, and then usually tomorrow morning you're going to have a little bit better recollection of what's up around the next corner. You'll probably know where you can kind of push it or where you need to be smooth and check up, take your time through the corners. Alright, right now our driving lines are looking pretty good, but as we pick up the pace later this afternoon, it's going to be paramount or very important to make sure we're driving that driving line, keeping the car under control, hitting those marks so close to the blue turning cones, on the curbs at the apexes. As long as we're doing that, we have no speed limits, if you didn't notice out there. So we're more than happy to drive at whatever pace you're comfortable at driving at. Again, we're just going to make sure we do it safely and correctly, keeping the car obviously on the track and under control. So if we're missing those apexes or turning in late or before the blue turning cones, then we're just going to bring it down, kind of fix those areas, and then we'll gradually build back up the pace. Alright, so again, just work on that precision, accuracy, being smooth, and getting that driving line down, learning the track. Alright, the rest will kind of start falling into place as we get going. Everyone can reach over and press stop recording on your PDRs. Alright, we're going to pull back in.